Hello, I'm Diane Trees. Nearly 2% of children in the United States have an autism diagnosis. The UCF Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, or CARD, serves both children and adults in our geographical region. Joining us now is Dr. Teresa Daly, Director of UCF CARD. Dr. Daly, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities?
Sure. The Center for Autism and Related Disabilities here at UCF is one of 7 around the state. It's funded by the Florida legislature to provide consultative support to families and adults who have autism spectrum disorder so they can take part in their communities and live and learn and play and do all the other things that other people in the community are able to do.
Are they based in different
Yes.
public universities?
They're almost all of them in a public university. The University of Miami has a CARD center, USF, FSU, FAU, University of Florida, Jacksonville, and Gainesville.
So they serve the geographical regions
Mm-hmm.
then. Can you give us a definition of autism?
Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means it's not visible at birth, but it affects the development of the brain. And people who have autism have differences in both the structure and the way their brain works and processes information, and that affects their social skills, their perceptual and sensory abilities, and the way in which they process information and feel comfortable in the world we live in.
Do we know the cause? Is there a genetic factor?
There's a strong genetic factor, but that isn't the only thing that we think is involved. We're learning more and more every day about what possibly could cause autism, but we don't have a clear answer yet. They're doing some interesting research on early development, and they're looking at baby teeth, and they're finding that children within the first couple months of life, as their teeth are developing, it's almost like rings on a tree, and they're seeing some differences in the way that children with autism absorb or process different kinds of nutrients, chemicals, all of those kinds of things, and they're looking at that in conjunction with the early development in utero.
I've heard it referred to being on the spectrum. What does that mean?
So the spectrum is an interesting concept. When you define autism or when you diagnose it, the doctors are looking for clusters of behavior. And if you have a certain number of these different kinds of behaviors, then you meet the criteria for autism spectrum disorder. But you could have just that many, or you could have all of them. So it kind of goes from a mild presentation to a more flavorful presentation of autism. So that's why people call it the spectrum. There's not a clear blue, red, green. It kind of blends into each other.
So instead of a category, you have a more fluid kind of scale.
Right.
So that's the best way then to think of autism.
It's one way to think of autism. I don't know if it's the best way because it kind of implies that there's one end of the spectrum that's better than the other end of the spectrum. And so we just view it as different flavors of ice cream or different combinations, like those new soda machines where you can take a little of this and a little of that. Some people may be very affected in the communication, other may be more affected in the social realm or in rituals.
Right.
So it all affects people differently, but when you have these combinations of social and interest and attentional issues, then we say that that person is probably on the autism spectrum.
When a child is diagnosed with autism, this affects, I would think, much more than just the child. How are family dynamics affected here?
Well, it affects everyone in the family. First of all, the parents are rushing around to get interventions for the child because we know that if you get a good early intervention, your outcomes can be much better. So then that affects the siblings because they're being trotted around to therapy sessions, or maybe they don't want to have friends come over because their brother or their sister does unusual behaviors, so they're kind of more isolated. And then it continues to affect the family because unlike other kinds of conditions, it's a lifelong condition. It's something that will be with the family forever, so they have to plan differently for if this child grows up and isn't able to live on their own, how am I going to make sure that he's safe and well cared for after I'm gone? So it continues to affect the system, and the siblings get involved in that too.
The financial impact must be extreme.
Yes, it is. I think the statistics say now it costs about $250,000 to raise a typical child to 18, and costs about $1.2 million to raise a child with autism to 18, and then you have about $1 million other dollars that will be the lifespan cost of having a child with autism.
With a diagnosis, is it the parent that usually detects, or is it, signs from the pediatrician developmentally? How does this happen?
Typically the parents notice something's different, a difference in speech or not responding to their name being called. They might suspect a hearing problem. We do have recommendations that the pediatricians are supposed to screen for autism twice before the age of 2. I don't know if that's happening everywhere, but the parents are usually the one to bring the concern up to the pediatrician.
So that's not a mandatory screening.
It's not mandatory. It's recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, though.
Now, you mentioned that there's research, a lot of progress has been made and ongoing. What kind of resources are out there for parents?
So besides CARD, there is Early Steps for Children who are under 3. This is a program that's run, a federal program that's run through the state, and they provide intervention and guidance for parents of children who are just newly diagnosed in that age range. During the school years, there's of course the school system providing special education services. We have a variety of private and charter schools in autism here in Orlando, which is great. And then there's the Gardner Scholarship, McKay Scholarship, which are funding sources for additional therapies or for a private placement or an alternative placement to what's in the public schools. As the children grow up, there's the Agency for Persons with Disabilities who will provide supports as they become in a crisis situation, or if they grow up into adulthood and need additional supports and can't live independently, that's another agency that provides some level of support. But everything's compartmentalized, so that's one of the reasons that CARD is nice, because we follow the child throughout the lifespan. We don't say, okay, you're 3 now, we're going to say goodbye. So we stick with the family and the individual. And since I've been working at CARD, I just went to the last school meeting for a child that I met when he was 2. He's turning 22 this year. Yeah, so it's great to see them grow up.
Do you encourage the families to share the diagnosis with people outside of the family circle?
Yes, I think it's really important that they be part of the community, that they be present, and that they explain to people, because what makes people feel uncomfortable about autism is they don't know what to expect. So if they see a child struggling at the mall or at Disney and they look at that child and they stare and no one says anything, they don't understand. And if they understood, they would probably be more accepting and willing to help and support.
I was amazed to learn that 1 out of 68 children are diagnosed with autism. I had no idea it was that prevalent. Why do you think that it's taken so long for that awareness, understanding to come about with this disability?
I think part of it has been people have been afraid of the word autism, and people have been afraid to use the word autism to describe the child's development because there weren't a lot of resources until recently. Until recently, there wasn't insurance coverage for autism, and we still don't have a lot of children who are covered by insurance. Medicaid didn't provide services for autism. But as advocacy by the parents has gone on, there's been more and more resources that they can use. So it's been less of a bad news kind of situation to say, oh, your child has autism, because now there are things that you can do about it.
Right.
So I think that's part of it.
Right. I know that Sesame Street has added a character, Julia. Were you surprised with that?
I was happy. Yeah, I was surprised actually. I was very happy to see that. It's a big step.
I think helps promote that acceptance and being part of a group and a family, and that everything is okay to
That's right.
to
There's
accept.
nothing to be ashamed of.
Right. We talked a little bit about related disabilities. What are the key ones that you focus on with CARD?
At CARD, it's very strange because our related disabilities are in the definition from the legislature. So for us, it's deaf-blindness, or deafness with another developmental disability, or blindness with another developmental disability. So all of those children have some problems that are similar to what children with autism face, and so that's part of our mission, to serve that group also.
You have quite a broad group to cover then. Do you partner then with community organizations?
Yes, we do. We partner with a nonprofit called Providing Autism Links and Supports. They help us augment what we can provide on what the government gives us to serve the people. So they provide family outings, they provide teen groups, adult outings, they provide intervention programs. We also partner with Autism Speaks to get awareness out there, and other local community groups that are working with our families to try and make sure everybody knows about what everyone else is doing, so we can fill the gaps that are out there for our families and community.
You have the families, the child, and then the child, as the child moves through the different age groups. That again is quite a wide area to cover. Do you need volunteers?
We do have volunteers that work with us in a lot of our intervention programs, and We work with PALS primarily because they are the ones who do all these extra programs. So we usually ask the volunteers to register with PALS, and then we will help them to develop the programs that the individuals and the families need.
So do you train your volunteers?
We've worked with high school students all the way up to grandparents. So anybody who wants to get involved and work with the families or work with the children, we need help, and so do they. They need a lot of support.
Yeah. Dr. Daly, you said that you mentioned that an early diagnosis is key. So you have any advice for parents who may just suspect or think something?
I would say bring your concerns to your pediatrician. The things that you're wanting to look for very young are, does the child respond consistently when you call his name? Does he look up at you? Does the child gesture and go, and kind of look at you to say, oh, or do you see what I see? Tell me what that is. Those kinds of things don't come easily to children with autism. A lot of people think children with autism don't make eye contact or they're not affectionate. That's not true. They do at times make eye contact, and they can be very affectionate. But that lack of a pointing, a lack of response to name, those are kinds of things that you don't see. Or any kind of language regression early on, those are red flags that you want to go immediately to your pediatrician and share those. And be persistent, because sometimes they'll brush you off. They only have a little time with you, but you've got to make your point in that time, because it can make a big difference in losing 6 months where you could have been working on getting those skills in place.
Thank you so much. Very helpful
Thank
information.
you. It's great to be here.